All right, if you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and the flag's right behind me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Hello, everybody. There's plenty of seats, and thank you for signing in. So in case I miss you in roll call, I know that you're here, and we have some visitors tonight, and that's great. We're going to go a little bit out of order. I'm not going to do roll call right away because that takes a little bit of time. And I think it's more important that we have our first guest speaker here, who I've seen many times, but I've never officially met, right here, Chief Lynn, sorry, not Flynn, that's the name of my priest at church. Sorry, you're not the same. Although he does dress in black too. So, and where he's here for the second term. We're so happy that he came back. And he's going to talk about if you all can remember, the community action teams that we had in the neighborhood. He's going to talk about the new plan and take some questions. And so we'll go ahead and get him started right here. Give him his own microphone. All right, and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. It's certainly a pleasure. I always enjoy when I have an opportunity to get out and to talk to everyone. I was asked to speak about a couple of specific topics, and then afterward I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Probably since day one, I've heard about our neighborhood action teams. And I think everybody's familiar with that. The officers assigned to individual areas that work with the HOAs and worked in the community. Those teams were eliminated in the not too distant past. We were fortunate. We asked for 33 additional officers in or 17 additional officers in our new budget. The mayor and the commission, the city manager, were able to do that for us. So we'll be adding over the next months new officers to the department. In the meantime, I've kind of changed the philosophy a little bit. I'm of the opinion, we have 3 different districts in Fort Lauderdale at the moment, 3 different police districts. Right? There's a captain in charge of each district. I'm of the opinion that the captain should be essentially the district chief, and the captain should be held accountable for what's happening in that district and should be aware of what's happening in that district, but at the same time should have the tools and the resources necessary to address the issues that are happening in that district. That hasn't been the case until just recently. So now what we've done is we've been able to bring back, the NAT teams were a little different. They didn't have a supervisor, they had broader areas. So I'm trying to bring those back, and ultimately we will. We have our first team back. The good news is the community support unit has come back, all right? This time it's different. They have a supervisor. They'll be assigned to a specific district. The district captain has the authority to use those personnel, deploy them as they see fit. Each week now, we have a meeting with the district captains, what we call a district report. The district captains come in, they articulate to the command staff, the chief, the assistant chiefs, the majors, what's happening in our district. This is how we stay on top of everything that's happening in your individual neighborhoods. We talk about the individual HOAs. We talk about the crime issues. We talk about the homeless issue, which is a different topic. I'll discuss that a little bit. And we talk about how they're going to solve the problems that are being presented to us in the different districts. So eventually, we hope to have a team in each district. Right now, we have one team that's working for the city at large. So in a sense, the NAT teams are already back. So down the road, we'll have hopefully even more. So questions or concerns about the NAT team? Any issues there? Are we on the right path? Yes? Okay, good. Nice to hear. So that's good. So the homeless situation. Probably the number one complaint that we get about issues. That ties in with disturbances, that ties in with crime issues, it ties in with trespassing issues, all type of issues. When we sit and look at our stats and look at the calls for service that we have, and then you ask if we pulled out all the calls for service related to homelessness, would that impact our calls for service? Yes. It would actually be a pretty significant drop in the number of calls that we get. The problem that we've had is, generally speaking, homelessness, you've probably heard this before, is not a crime in and of itself. So the city passed an ordinance recently to try to address the fact that we do have homeless people being hit by cars. You know, they're out panhandling. particularly at nighttime. We've had people in a wheelchair was hit by a car and killed. We've had other people walk out in the street, they're hit by a car. Sometimes, frequently, they're impaired and they're out in traffic, and we get a lot of complaints about that. So there was a new ordinance that was put in place. We began enforcing that ordinance. That lasted a week, and the attorneys told us you have to stop enforcing that. So that is now no longer on the table, at least for the moment. We hope that at some point in the not too distant future that comes back as a tool for us. But, I think I share your frustrations about something needs to be done. I agree with that. Something needs to be done. But the answer is not for us. I've had people tell me, like the bus terminal over here, the BCT, why don't you go over there and round them up and take them to jail? Well, because that's against the law. We can't do that. For an officer to act, the officer has to either witness the crime or the crime has to be of such a serious nature that's a felony, and the officer has probable cause, meaning evidence and witnesses to make that arrest. Otherwise, we can't do it. A person standing on the corner holding a sign, that's not a person that we can arrest. A person standing in the street right now, that's not a person that we can arrest. And I think people also need to understand that literally the jail is like 2 blocks south of here, and these are all no bond offenses. So the officer takes them to the jail for the misdemeanor crimes or for the ordinance violation. They take them down the street, the officer drops them off, drives back to the police station, spends the next several hours writing the reports about that, and the person you just dropped off to the jail walks back to this corner right here. I don't have a solution to that. That's just a revolving, perpetual thing. So I share your frustrations. If I could solve it tonight, I promise you I would immediately assign people and we would solve that. So, yes, ma'am.
Let me, because we won't be able to hear you. This is what I do. I run around. I read in the news or certain sites that there are issues of sanitation violations and, property rights where some of these people set themselves up they might not be committing a crime, but well, maybe it is a crime if they're trespassing or
Right.
if they're violating certain rules or laws or ordinances. What about those? Because you see the areas where they've basically kind of made a tent city type situation.
Right. Those trespassing and crimes are absolutely enforceable by the police officer under the circumstances I described. Either the police officer has to witness it, generally speaking for a misdemeanor crime, or they have to have probable cause, which means witnesses and evidence for a felony or certain other misdemeanors. Absent that, the officer can't make the arrest. And so for even like a trespass, if the officer arrives and says the person has to leave and the person leaves, then there's no arrest. So.
Test. Hi, Chief Flynn. Thank you for taking the question. Sean Rothfuss, Vice President of South Middle River. I think we could all agree here that virtually Boca Raton doesn't have a homelessness problem. What are they doing differently, and how can we adapt from that to do that here? So we virtually do not have a homeless problem.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing differently. The only thing I can tell you is that being downtown and having the jail and the facilities for homeless here, it is an attractant. So.
Yeah, I did. Hi, I'm Will Cody. I'm the Secretary of South Middle River. I live 4 blocks from Hope, South Florida, where a lot of the homeless people hang out. Is there any way that we can get a police officer there when they have the feedings on Thursday night and the other times that they have the feedings? The only reason for that is they're hanging around. The Best Roofing drops them off but does not pick them up, okay? And I have proof of it because I've watched it, and Best Roofing never came back to pick them up.
When is this? And tell me where it's at again.
It's Hope, South Florida. It's 1100 North Andrews Avenue,
Right.
And there's feedings during the day from like 10 to 12 weekdays, and Thursday nights, and one other night. I don't know what the other night is, but
Right.
they're hanging around. They either too far for them to walk wherever they're going to go, and they just stay in South Middle River for the rest of the night, and just trying to find a place to hang out.
I'll pass that along now, and let me share a little bit of positive news with you too. So you recall I mentioned that we have three different districts. Can you hear that? Is that better? So that we have 3. Honestly, I think I do better without the microphone So we have three different police districts. We have two officers who do homeless outreach, right? We're adding a third officer to the homeless outreach. Now, keep in mind what those officers do. Those officers go out day in and day out and interact with the homeless people, and we ask them, we offer them services. Those who want the services, we'll make arrangements to provide those services. We'll find shelters for them. We'll make sure that they have food. We'll do whatever we can. We've provided bus passes for people to get a trip home. Contact their family, because there's people who haven't been in contact with their family. They reach out for their family, and their families, yes, we've been looking for them. We want them home. We've made those arrangements. But that's all voluntary. In this room, we have actually tomorrow, there'll be a judge, and they'll come in with people who have had charges, and those people, we will work with them in lieu of going to jail or jail time to try to make a difference in their lives and get them into the program or get them the assistance that they need. So it's not all about enforcement either. So we're kind of working this problem from a number of different ways to try to resolve it, but that's all voluntary. So I don't know who was next. Sorry.
What would you say the percentage is of the people that actually want to be helped versus the ones that are just on the street and?
I don't know the percentage, but the majority of people who don't want help, because if they wanted help, we would have been able to get them in voluntarily. But keep in mind, a lot of these people have their serious substance abuse issues and serious psychological issues, and that's not, you ask a person like that, can we give you something to help? They walk away, so.
Why is that a police officer doing that kind of work instead of a social worker doing that kind of?
Social workers the city has a whole other group of people who work with the police
But I'm
officer.
saying, why is that social worker not employed by the police department?
Oh, I don't know. Why aren't they employed by the,
'Cause I
they're
would rather
employed by
see
the city, so.
a policeman doing something else rather than that.
Yeah, I get that, but we're working to address the complaints of why isn't the police department doing something about this? So this is our effort to try to address it. So I saw,
Yeah, I just want to make one comment, and that is because I personally know somebody who's trying to get into a shelter right now. There are two shelters in Fort Lauderdale, Salvation Army and the Hack. And the Salvation Army is like week at a time. Sometimes she gets a bed, sometimes she doesn't get a bed.
right,
The Hack, she's been waiting for 3 months to get a bed at the Hack.
and that's a big issue.
So we can't say that the majority of people don't want help. I think, and one of the reasons that homeless people hang out is because they are forced to leave the shelter at 5:30 a.m. and they're not allowed to return until 6 p.m., right? So they don't have a place to go, really. And it's very hard for them to get services. They kind of hop around trying to find a place to eat and a place to have a
Right.
shower. But, really we need more shelter beds and we need transitional housing
Right.
so that every person could have a place of their own.
I don't disagree with what you're saying about the lack of availability, but the question is, do the majority of people we contact ask us for help or ask us for assistance? And the answer is no.
Let me just.
At least it's been articulated to me and from what I've seen. So what their reasons are, I don't, just telling you that's what we've experienced. So, and yes, sir.
I just want to say I appreciate everybody that works on the homeless problems here. It's really tough, and it's a social issue, and I think the city's going to eventually get to it. But you said something that the people standing here with signs, the people that are, in the lanes here, you said that was not something that you could arrest or that you can deal with. It was my understanding that as soon as somebody leaves the sanctity of that median, and now
Leaves the sanctity of what?
the median, the curb,
Okay.
that's when the First Amendment rights left. They're able to stand there, communicate their First Amendment, but once they started going up to the cars and panhandling and walking the lanes, that I believe was now an offense that the police should be enforcing.
And it could be. But what there also is a court order telling us that we can't.
A court
So-
order or the city attorney.
No, a court order.
Court order has now prevented you from stopping panhandlers, walking up and down the lanes, dealing with their
Yes.
cars. That's what you're saying tonight.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's interesting for everyone to know.
So,
Second thing is, I just forgot what I was going to say. I can't remember what I was going to say. I just let it go.
All right. And Mr.
If you
Brown.
remember, we'll come back to you. All right, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Wait a minute, he is loud, so.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to redirect from the homeless and more strategically. You mentioned the city's had 3 districts for a number of years. We all know that the fabric of our community and the demographics and the growth of the community and the city has changed over those years with those 3 districts. From a strategic planning point, do you feel the current model of 3 districts meets the needs of the community? Or what's the future planning of the department?
Well, what we did is we've looked at, and I also hear about the response time for police officers. I also hear about the visibility of police officers and the places where we need officers and based upon cost for service. So what we've done is we looked at, the city has excellent planning in place, and I can tell you the things that have recently been built downtown and what's planned to start construction soon and what's on the drawing board. And there's great growth, great things happening downtown. For us, our concern is we want to be able to be sure that we keep up with that growth. So there has been talk about a 4th district, a downtown district. I would love to see officers on, there's a lot of things that I would like to see that, you have to be realistic with the budgets too. I'd like to see officers on bike patrol on the beach. I'd like to see more officers on Las Olas. Hopefully we're going to do some really nice things over on Sistrunk with some progress that we're making there with some changes there. But we also have to be realistic about the budget. So if I had my druthers, yes, there would be a 4th district. We are making plans for that, but that won't happen tomorrow. So.
Can you tell us anything about the new police headquarters?
It's not built yet.
I don't, if you didn't hear that, I wanted to know about the new police headquarters.
But I can tell you, everyone's working on it to the extent they can. Apparently, there's a lot involved with the permitting and a number of different issues they've been working on for years. We're getting close. We're getting close, but that's something that's definitely needed. I walked into that building, I was like, wow. So, yes, ma'am.
Where are we at time? Up, down?
Generally speaking, violent crime is moving down. Homicides are down from last year compared to this time last year. Property crimes are moving up. A big issue is stolen vehicles and car burglaries. Please, if you want to hear a little bit my lecture about crime prevention, we have a situation now where largely kids will drive down a street. One person will drop off a couple of kids. They'll get out each side of the street, go try door handles, and with the car doors that are open, they rummage through the car and they take what they can. People leave guns in their cars. They leave computers, wallets, purses. The other thing is people who have with the fobs, the key fobs. If you have a key fob and your mirrors are collapsible, they fold in. If you leave the keys in your car, the mirrors don't fold in. They drive down the street, they look for the mirrors that have not folded in, they know the keys are in the car, they steal your car. This is all very preventable, not complicated stuff, and the thing is, it can lead to very, real tragedy. We had a couple of kids, they went into the car, then they ended up going into the garage of the house because now they can go in, burglarize the house while the people are at home. Someone called the police, the officers picked up the car, there was a pursuit, the car collided with another car, and one person in the other car was killed, along with other people who were seriously injured. 2 kids. You may have seen that in the news, the kid that was on TV the other night laughing about this whole thing. So a lot of this is preventable. So, all right. Yep, absolutely.
Seems like every time I drive, I see people running stop signs, red lights, crazy U-turns, trucks driving down the street in my neighborhood that clearly says no trucks. I don't see any traffic enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that for a few minutes?
Sure. Well, because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Officers are issuing hundreds, thousands of citations. If there's a specific area where you think there's a problem, shoot me an email and, we'll come out to address it. A lot of times, there's a perception. What we do is we'll deploy a trailer out in that neighborhood and we'll measure the number of cars that go by and the speeding. And if there is an issue, then we'll assign an officer to go out and write citations. Otherwise, it's just a matter of issuing additional patrol. But that's the problem with that. It's kind of a hit or miss thing. So if you have a specific area and time, let me know and we'll work on it. So.
Okay, we have one back here.
Hi, I'm Rick Buchanan from Coral Ridge Isles. The women in my neighborhood are being harassed by a character commonly known as the butt cheek grabber. He rides a bicycle, usually around dusk. He patrols around, looks for unaccompanied women and then zooms up, grabs their buttocks, and then zooms off. And my understanding is that has been going on for 3 to 4 years. I've gotten 2 complaints in the last 30 days, and I'm also led to believe that this person is not just in Coral Ridge Isles, but also has been in Middle River, and there was another community, I can't remember where it was. So we've tried to work with the local police, but we don't seem to be getting anywhere.
Okay.
And it's become so difficult that mothers don't even allow their young children to walk the dog in the evening because they're afraid of them being molested.
Yeah, I don't recall hearing of this. When is this occurring and where? And
It's in Coral Ridge Isles, which is between Commercial and
Right.
Cypress Creek Road, 18th and
in
Dixon
the
Highway.
evenings or in the mornings or at nighttime? when
It's
people are walking
happening
their dog?
mostly in the evenings, although my understanding is it has happened in the afternoons.
And when's the last time this happened?
I want to say a month ago. I have the email of the woman who wrote to me, and then another gentleman, because I had posted something asking if anyone had pictures. I was told there were pictures on Nextdoor. No one sent me the pictures because I wanted to send them directly to you. But it is an issue, and whatever we can do to help, I'm certainly there because I don't think
I will look into that
should
for you.
continue.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely. That's something that we would take very seriously.
Are we allowed to hire our own, like, gangs or something to watch? All kinds of
Yeah.
pictures go through my head and how I'm going to catch the, what'd you call them? The putt.
Yeah.
The butt.
Oh,
No? Okay,
Not good.
sorry. I don't mean to make a joke. That's really not funny. All right. I'm just going to wind down here. Last question, okay?
All right. I'm Ed Ripholz, president of Lauderdale Harbors. We put in license plate readers. Do you have any stories about success that you're having with that? And have they?
They're fantastic. There's been
When you
many
say fantastic,
vehicles recovered, stolen vehicles recovered, even things that you don't. Are you familiar with the real-time crime center that we have in a partnership with the sheriff's office?
one time.
So we have a group of people in the sheriff's office headquarters down the street on Broward Boulevard that are monitoring cameras from all different locations. And they're also monitoring the license plate readers. When a car, you familiar with what a license plate reader is? A car drives by, the camera picks it up, it automatically runs the license plate and gives us information about the vehicle, whether the car was stolen or whatnot. Generally speaking, we're not paying attention to that, like someone actively watching every car. But when something happens, we can go back to that data and look at it. So this was an unexpected outcome, I guess you could say, from this. So the people in the real-time crime center are aware of where the license plate readers are. There was a pursuit that started in Naples, Florida, all right, over in Naples. They came across Alligator Alley. They had the tag. The people in real-time crime center said, let's enter that tag and see what we have. They pulled it up. They discovered that car frequently goes to a particular apartment complex. They notified the officers that it could be going to that apartment complex. While they're on the way, the officers were there waiting, and then they showed up. I mean, that one I didn't see coming. So, but that's a great thing. But there have been a number of stolen vehicles that, we've become aware of and hopefully recover too. So it does work. So it's a great investigative tool. So,
One last
whatever you'd like to do.
One last question, Doc. Here you go.
In terms of the LPRs, there's a difference between the ones that are all around as opposed to the ones that some of the HOAs put in. In terms of like trying to eliminate the stolen cars from like your HOA, the cars don't get entered into the database until they're reported stolen, which is usually the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So they probably are not going to address the problem of stolen cars in your individual neighborhood.
But they do. Now, you're 100% correct. If you live on a street and there's an LPR at the end of the street, someone steals your car and drives by that LPR, it's not going to flag as a stolen vehicle because it has to be entered into the system. If it hasn't been reported stolen yet, no one knows it's stolen. But I don't know how it could be instantaneous. If people are home asleep and their car drives away, that's the same thing as you driving out of your development. I mean, we wouldn't get a notification that you left your development in a stolen car. So, but once it's entered, and what's happening is these cars, different things happen, but what we're seeing is a lot of kids will get the car, they'll sell the car to somebody else, they'll sell the car to somebody else. They don't really worry too much about swapping tags and whatnot, so we pick them up on the LPRs. So not, obviously, like you said, you're 100% correct, not the moment the car is stolen, though. So, all right.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
I hope that was informative. I truly enjoy meeting with everybody and interacting like this. If I can be of any help in the future, don't hesitate to call. So
Thank you. And he also
thank you
did
again.
tell me that the mounted police are staying. Nothing's going to happen to.
The mounted police are staying.
Everybody knows how much I love horses.
Yes.
I always like seeing them.
They're staying. We're not making any cuts. So.
Making me
Okay.
happy. Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, Patrick Lynn, Lynn. So, okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Pretty informative. Okay. Next, we have Dr. Nancy Gassman. She's the Assistant Director of Public Works. She's come and talked to us before, and I think it's kind of pretty timely time for you to come and talk to us about tidal surge. First of all, we're in October tides, now known as king tides. And having seen what happened on the west side of the state is kind of a timely subject. So, Dr. Gassman, please go right ahead. Thank you. Thank you so much. Is this on? No.
How about now? Okay, great. Thanks so much for inviting me to come chat with you today. We'll be talking today about the proposed changes to what we used to call the seawall ordinance. And this board had a huge impact on the last time. So the seawall ordinance was adopted in 2016, and this board made a huge difference, or the association made a huge difference in the final outcome of what that particular ordinance said. That ordinance set a minimum elevation for seawall elevations at 3.9 feet. It recommended that the future design of seawalls should have a height adjustment ability up to 5 feet. It set an allowable maximum height, so we set a minimum top elevation and a maximum top elevation. And we also set a few parameters for how you might be cited if your seawall was in disrepair, if you had to do a substantial repair of that seawall, if it was cracked, if it wasn't in good repair, or if it allowed tidal waters to enter your property and then exit your property and impact either a right-of-way or if it ended up impacting your next-door neighbor. And there was also some additional language about how long you had from the time you were cited to deal with the problem, put in a new seawall, and then there was some additional information about your docks and about floating docks. So that's our existing seawall ordinance as it exists today. So I think that the events on the west coast of Florida, on the Gulf Coast of Florida, has everyone really thinking very seriously about what is important to us in terms of flood protection in our homes and in our communities. And this seawall ordinance is about changing the way that we're looking at our seawalls in order to provide better flood protection. So Broward County engaged the Army Corps of Engineers in 2018 to take a look at all of our seawalls and say, what is the right elevation for our seawalls, given that we have sea level rise and that we want to be able to have those seawalls provide the protection that's appropriate for the life of the seawall. Most seawalls last about 50 years. And so the Army Corps of Engineers did a study to say, what is the right height for seawalls to provide protection through the year 2050? And that's my time. Thank you very much. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. So Broward County took the information from the Army Corps of Engineers, and they said, okay, Army Corps has told us that the right number for the minimum elevation of seawalls is 5 feet. and that through our authority, we believe that all the coastal communities should have a regionally consistent standard for the minimum top elevation at 5 feet. And so they created this regional standard for all coastal communities that have to come into compliance with this particular requirement of the minimum sea level or top of bank elevation is 5 feet by the year 2050. And so as part of the Broward County's comprehensive plan and their land use plan, they put in a requirement that everybody that is a coastal community in Broward County has to be consistent with this same title requirement. Now, Broward County's new code, where they set their 5 feet of elevation as the minimum sea level rise, the minimum top elevation of a seawall, much of the language in there is based on our code. So they took our code and then they created their model code from what our code already said. And again, the major change is this minimum elevation of 5 feet. So this type of change to our ordinance is consistent with what's already in our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan says that the city will adopt an update as necessary so that we have a regionally consistent top elevation for not just seawalls, but banks and berms and other coastal structures. And that these standards have to be consistent with Broward County Code. So what are the key changes for our code that's in the Unified Land Development Regulations section, what used to be our sea level rise ordinance, which now is going to be called the Resilient Sea Standards for Tidal Flood Protection? So it establishes a set of definitions. It extends the elevation requirement from not only seawalls, but to any tidal barrier. And a tidal barrier is defined essentially as any structure that's between the water and the land. It requires a minimum elevation of 5 feet. And it allows for structures that get permitted before the year 2035 to be built to 4 feet, but they have to be structurally sound enough to add that additional foot should it be necessary. And consistent with our current ordinance, it also establishes a maximum elevation for tidal barriers, which is the base flood elevation or 6 feet, whichever is lower. In addition, it requires that if there is a location where there was no previous seawall and you're going to add some type of tidal structure or tidal barrier, you have to provide for some habitat enhancement on the waterward face of the seawall or whatever your structure is. It encourages the incorporation of living shoreline features, and it provides for the city engineer's ability to issue a waiver from that top elevation for waterfront homes where the principal structure is very low. So for homes that were built in the 1940s, the 1930s, where the habitable floor is less than 4 feet, you can apply for a waiver from the city in order to be able to raise your seawall, but not to a point where it's going to create a problem for your particular house. The minimum elevation for these seawalls is built so that we can adjust and address sea level rise over time. So it protects your property from the sea. The maximum elevation is set to protect your property from water from the sky, so that when you put in a seawall, you don't have water that's flowing backwards from the seawall and into your home because your finished floor elevation is lower than your seawall. Okay? The last thing that is part of the Broward County Model Code is that it requires disclosure in contracts for sale of real estate on waterfront homes that lets people know, by the way, you have a tidal barrier and there's standards for those tidal barriers. So what hasn't changed? What hasn't changed is that changing the elevation of your seawall is only for new seawalls or tidal barriers, or for reconstruction of an existing seawall if it is over the substantial repair threshold. So if more than 50% of your seawall is damaged or needs repair, you have to elevate it to the new standard. Or if you get cited for allowing water to come, tidal water to come over your seawall and enter the right-of-way. So that hasn't changed. All of that stays the same. You must having trouble talking tonight. It's been a long day. It requires maintaining seawalls and tidal barriers in good repair. So that's no different than the code that says you gotta keep your fence in good repair, or you have to keep your roof in good repair. It continues to require owners to prevent tidal waters from entering their property from impacting others. So that's nothing new. That's still in there. And again, we set both a minimum and a maximum elevation. We will be presenting this ordinance to the Sustainability Advisory Board at the end of the month. We're hoping to go and chit-chat with our friends at Planning and Zoning Board, because this is part of the ULDR. It must go through the Planning and Zoning Board. And then we're hoping to bring it to the Commission sometime in the December-January timeframe. And one of the reasons we're before you tonight is because, again, this board was very important in helping shape the ordinance that this new model ordinance is based upon, and I am hoping to get a motion supporting these changes to the ULDR that the group agrees that we should be adopting a regionally consistent standard for tidal flood protection. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that we have time for.
All right, hang on. Here we go.
In reference to 5 feet above what? Is it low tide, median tide?
Great question. So it's 5 feet NAVD 88. So now it should be perfectly clear to you. No. So 5 feet NAVD 88 is roughly mean sea level. But it's not exactly mean sea level. Okay.
Nancy, in the Corps study, did the Corps do any cost-benefit analysis of regarding mitigation measures as currently done, without dunes or without floodgates, and decide whether, make recommendations, whether it would be cost-benefit to put those things in over the long term?
So I don't recall whether they specifically did a cost-benefit analysis, but it's the Corps, and so normally they do. However, there were other groups that have been working with Broward County that have done not a cost-benefit analysis, but a risk analysis, stating the difference it would make in impact to the community if you had a 4-foot seawall, a 5-foot seawall, a 6-foot seawall, and a 7-foot seawall, and looking at the relative risks of how adding 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot would make a difference to the risk factors that we would deal with as a community. And one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that our infrastructure in general is built for managing high-frequency, low-intensity events. And so we're not building our seawalls to manage a 15-foot storm surge. We're not building our seawalls to handle a tsunami. We are managing and building our seawalls in order to address the everyday conditions that we're expecting to experience over the next 50 years.
So do you have some kind of satellite program that tells me what 5 feet above mean sea level means if I want to measure my own seawall?
Oh, great question.
I mean, how do I tell that? I mean, we have it inspected every year.
So in theory, most homeowners know what their finished floor elevation is. And a crude way to manage, to figure that out is to attach a string to your back door where your elevation is and make the string level and go out to your seawall and measure the distance. But there is no standard city available survey. If you have a survey of your home, it should tell you what elevation your seawall is at. But you need to look at the units, because these units are in now I've got it mixed up, NGVD 88, and older surveys will be in NAVD 29. I know that's confusing. It's a little like talking about some 6 feet in metrics versus 6 feet in 6 meters versus 6 feet. You have to understand the metrics. but a surveyor will understand the metrics. So if you have your own survey, go home, take a look at it, and see what the units are, number one, and then see if it tells you how tall your seawall is. If your seawall over top today, it's below 1.8 feet. How many people seawall over top today? Nobody. Good for you guys. Nobody's getting wet today.
Hi. As we're looking at this in terms of the seawall, are they also considering the placement of the storm drain? Because one of the situations in our neighborhood is when the king tides come, the water goes backwards up the storm drain and floods the street where the storm drains are. So I just wondered if that's being considered, especially with by 2050, we expect that the tides will continue to rise.
Right, so that's a good question. To date, the city has installed 185 tidal valves, and we've installed those based on areas where we are seeing that type of flooding coming through the catch basins. But we also are planning over the next 5 years to install as many, up to 300. So we're going to go from 185 to 300, and we are targeting those locations where the elevation of what's called the terminal catch basin, the last catch basin before it discharges to a waterway, is at an elevation where it's going to be impacted by king tides.
Okay. Doctor, if you would, I would like to send this program out, put it on the council's website, and if you could send me that motion, that way it gives us like a month before our next meeting for all of the presidents and representatives to share this with their civic associations, and then we can make a motion and do something about this in our November meeting.
Great.
That sound good to you?
Absolutely,
Okay.
and if any HOA wants me to come talk to their association about that,
okay, I think you are.
They're happy to do that.
Okay. All right. So if you don't know how to get a hold of Dr. Gassman, just let me know, because I do.
I have some cards, and I'll leave them on the back table,
Okay.
and I'll send this to you as a PDF.
All right. Very good. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, real quick, something I forgot to do, and I can do this fast, roll call, and then we're going to proceed. So just bear with me. All right, if you are here, as I say your neighborhood or your civic association, just say here and say it loud. So, all right, Ball Harbor, Bermuda Riviera, Beverly Heights, Birch Park. I saw that. Wow. Central Beach. Central City Alliance. Cooley Hammock. Coral Ridge Country Club. Coral Ridge Association. Coral Ridge Isles. Coral Shores. Croissant Park. Okay, hang on, I'm kind of lost here. Dolphin Isles. Did I hear here? Oh, thank you. Hey, Michael. Okay. Dolphin Isles. Jesus. Bear with me. All right. Downtown. Here. Edgewood Civic Association. Flagler Village. Here. Galt Mile. Okay. Golden Heights.
Here.
Are you John? Okay, I've never met you. Harbordale. Harbor Beach property owners. Harbor Inlet. Okay. Historic Dorsey. Home Beautiful. Oh. Idlewild. Imperial Point. Lake Air Civic Association. Lake Ridge.
Here.
Landings. Lauderdale Beach, they're not here, I know. Lauderdale Harbors.
Here.
Lauderdale Civic.
Here.
Lauderdale Manors. Mass District. They're not here. Melrose Manors.
Here.
Middle River Terrace. Nurmi Isles.
Here.
Palm Air Village 1. Nope. Poinciana Heights.
Here.
Poinciana Park. I think they're. Okay. Progresso. Rio Vista.
Present.
River Garden. Riverland Preservation Society. River Oaks.
Here.
River Landings. Riverside Park. Rock Island, he's excused. Sailboat Bend. Seven Isles. Shady Banks. Sunrise Intercoastal. South Miller River. Turpin River. Victoria Park. Okay, that's it. All right, thank you. All right. Our final guest speakers, I think, how many times have you given this speech?
Not that many, maybe 12, no, I'm kidding.
All right, so we have Jim Hetzel here. He's a principal urban planner, and Ella Parker's here too. I'm sure a lot of you have seen Ella around. She's an urban design and planning manager, and they are going to talk about the idea of an increase in height to 500 feet for the Planned Development District, otherwise known as the PDD. And it's ordinance, it says in the agenda, but I don't think that's really the correct word at this point. So it really should say thought.
Sure. Good evening. It's always hard to go after Dr. Gassman, and you feel like she gives such an amazing presentation, plus her information is so important. So what I'm here to present tonight is a change to a zoning district called the PDD, a Planned Development District. The reason why I'm here is our city commission asked staff to engage the public and the civic associations to see if there's any interest in making this change. So a little bit about the PDD. It's derived from a planned unit development, a PUD, which is a master plan residential development that's used throughout the entire country. It's been around for a while. At first, that PUD was transformed into an ID, which is innovative development. In 2013, this ID committee was formed to create the ID ordinance, which was adopted by the commission, and it came from the PUD. The Planned Development District also had the same advisory committee come together to create that Planned Development District, the PDD, back in 2017, and then the commission adopted that. So that's the evolution of this zoning district over time. The advisory committee in 2017 got together, and the main discussion points they had talked about the public outreach process, density, height, intensity, which is floor area ratio, and the district name. The Planning and Zoning Board made a recommendation to limit building height to 250 feet. There was an issue with that because we have one zoning district in the city that allows 300 feet. So from a legal perspective, we had to make that 300 feet. And then the commission adopted the 300 feet based on staff and the legal opinion. The PDD was adopted in May of 2019. So what's the intent and purpose of this zoning district? It is to provide significant benefit to the community if an applicant is asking for something, a relief from something or deviation from somewhere in the code. The PDD allows property owners to basically create their own zoning district as long as they're in compliance with our comprehensive plan. Some of the minimum conditions to be a PDD, minimum size, 2 acres, a half an acre if you're in the regional activity center, such as downtown. It's got to be consistent with our comprehensive plan. It's got to be under unified control, and there's got to be recorded restricted covenants on the property. Some of the criteria and limitations on the project include compatible land uses, compatible with the surrounding land uses, building mass and scale needs to be compatible with the neighborhood, streetscape improvements, and so forth. The density, like I said, there's a density limit of 50 units per acre. So that's one of the things that the PDD Advisory Committee created was a density limit, where the ID did not have a density limit. The floor area ratio is 3 with the FAR. We call it three times the size of the parcel. And then the height, the way it's written in the code, it's 125% of the existing zoning building height, or not to exceed 300 feet. The review and approval process, this requires a supermajority by our city commission, which means 4 out of the 5 have to approve the PDD request. So we have 2 PDDs in the city. The first one is Alhambra, which I believe they're calling Celine now. It's on the beach. It's between Alhambra and Sebastian. The building height is 300 feet. And the reason why is because the applicant worked with the surrounding neighborhood and the surrounding condo buildings, because at first they had a fatter building, a wider building. They were able to go skinnier and go up, but they had to ask for that 300, and they worked with the community to get that. The other project is the Towers PDD. It's 46 feet high. It's only 4 stories. This is the old Towers retirement home. It's a historic building off of, I think, 8th and north of Las Olas. So you can see there's a very big difference there on the building heights from 46 to 300 feet. So as I mentioned, the City Commission directed staff to engage the civic associations in the community to see if there's any interest in making the maximum building height from 300 feet to 500 feet. That is the only direction we got from our commission. That's why we're here, is just ask that question. There's a couple ways that you can respond. We are accepting emails individually, but I think since this is the council, perhaps you all could decide if you want to do a vote or representation from each neighborhood, or even if you want to send us on letterhead your individual neighborhood and community on letterhead and what your community wants. That's helpful as well. So there's a variety of ways to reach out to us. We've done about 6 different meetings so far with different associations. If your community wants a meeting, please let us know within the next week so we can wrap up this process and get back to our city commission. You can email myself or Ella. Our emails are on the screen. We'll be glad to coordinate and do that. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Okay. I do want all the questions on me. Please do speak. Wait for me to get there with a microphone. And if you could just say your name and what neighborhood you're from, that would be helpful. So we'll get everybody. Here you go.
Thanks, Mary. Jackie Scott, Coley Hammock. Jim, have you had anybody support this?
So
you don't have to give the name, just the neighborhood.
We have received, I believe, 3 emails of support that have come from individuals.
But not from any neighborhood, correct?
No.
Thank you.
Hi, this is JJ Ryder from Rio Vista Civic Association. Thank you for the nice presentation you did in our neighborhood. After you were there, we met, and it was pretty much unanimous no. The one issue that arose, though, is that when the initial program was put together, there was a 250-foot limit, but one district was already at 300. The question was, why didn't we just leave it at 250 with the exclusion of the one that was already at 300 feet? And that answer never was forthcoming during the meeting.
So that is a legal matter. So our city attorney's office said you can't do that because basically you're restricting the use of this zoning district throughout the entire city, which is the intent. You couldn't say that you could only go to 250 under this PDD, but this property can go to 300 under the PDD. It's not legally right. So they weighed in on that to say you have to make it this height throughout the entire city if you're going to go with a maximum of what that zoning district allowed, which is 300 feet.
And the 250-foot recommendation was done by the zoning board, was that correct?
The planning and zoning board made that recommendation, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Will Cody. I'm the secretary of South Middle River Civic Association. Are they going to be able to do this in residential neighborhoods, go 300 feet up in a residential area?
So this zoning district is available throughout the entire city. If the property owner meets the minimum requirements, they can file for a PDD, but they also have to meet all the other criteria and requirements of compatibility and so forth. We don't foresee it coming into a residential neighborhood if it was going to be used. I think from a planning practice, we would discourage that. We're looking at corridors, probably looking at properties of significant size. In the middle, smack middle of a neighborhood is most likely not going to happen.
Okay, just so basically, a builder could come in and say they could build 300, or, on my block, which is the 200 block of Northwest Second Avenue. They can just come in and build a 300-story apartment building.
If they meet the minimum requirements and they can meet the criteria for coming in with a planned development district, then we would evaluate it, but it's really highly unlikely they're going to come into the middle of a residential neighborhood and build 300 feet.
My name is Ed Catalano, and I'm with South Middle River. My question to you is, how much time do we all have to get you an answer? We need to go to talk to all our people and see what they want. And I'm sure that everybody in this room that represents a civic association has got to go to their people, because their people decide what that association does and how they respond.
So if you want us to come present to you, I would ask that you get that to us in the next week or so we can organize it and get those on the calendar. If you have another meeting for your community, say in the next month, then that's acceptable to get something to us after you have your meeting.
James?
Jim.
Yes. Apologies. Sean Rothfuss, South Middle River Vice President. From a long-term planning perspective, I think this is one of the best and most value-add things that could be brought to the city. The only reservations I have heard so far are there's going to be a large shadow casted in my yard. And I understand that, but that could be 10, 15, 20 years really from now till it makes its way into the residential area. So I just want to encourage everyone to think about the long-term plan. Yes, maybe 20 years down the road, 15 years down the road, there might be some kind of casting shadow. But what if your property is worth $2, $3, $4, $5 million? How much are you going to care about that shadow? We are in a downtown, rural, urban area that is growing very quickly. So just think about the long term and what you're setting up the future of the residents and the future owners in the area up for as well. Thank you.
Hi, Kevin Cochran, Point of Americas. Really two questions. First, it sounds like there's a timeline that you need to get back to the commission, but it's clear that there's been only 6 neighborhood presentations and concerns that not everyone's aware. Is there any ability for you to delay getting back to the commission until all neighborhoods have had a right to hear this presentation? That's question number 1. And question number 2 is, what's driving next week as the deadline for you to provide feedback to the commission? When is the scheduled vote?
So the first part of that question, your question is, we're following a timeline that we are getting back to our commission on a reasonable time frame since they asked us to do something. Basically staff has put a timeline down to get back to the commission. Whether we do that in a memo or actually go present to them, I'm not quite sure the format we would, but all the information we collect up until that time will be presented to them, individual emails or any letters. The reason why we're asking about a week is because we have to get it on the calendar, and it's the holiday season approaching, so I think it's appropriate to get your requests in as soon as possible so we can schedule the meetings on the calendars.
Yes or no,
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Yes or no on the changes based on feedback.
Your community meetings, or the commission's not making a vote. There's no vote on this. We are getting back to the commission on the public's interests, the community's interests, the association's interests in changing the height from 300 to 500. There's no vote. There's no proposed language. There's nothing at this time. I don't know who's, I guess she's.
Jim, hi. Nancy Thomas. I'm a resident of Harbor Inlet. And first of all, I'm really thrilled to see the commission asking staff to reach out to the civic associations and thereby its taxpayers and members, because this is the kind of discussion that we would love to have on major changes, which this could be. So thank you for taking this on. I'm sure you have lots of other things to do. But I think Harbor Inlet is a residential neighborhood. I just want to make all the other civic associations aware that this arose because of Pier 66 and being rebuilt, and the 2 towers for which they're requesting an ordinance change that are south of 17th Street are adjacent to our neighborhood. Right, but the third one is is on the hotel main property. Anyway, three, and we don't really care for any of them, but the point is that we've got two that are proposed right at the entrance to our low-rise, historically residential neighborhood. So when I was reading your criteria, I did see building mass and scale should provide transition to surroundings. I'm not trying to get into the weeds. I'm just noting that there are some things that this particular request doesn't conform to your criteria. That's just my opinion. And I just want people to know that you may not think this will ever happen in your neighborhood, but we never thought it would happen in ours. And we're very leery of going up too high when it isn't necessary. So I know our association sees this as a want, not a need. Okay.
I'm Leanne Barber. I'm president of the Flagler Village Civic Association, and we've actually been subjected to a lot of the high-rise development that's going on. And what we're finding is that the city is approving density, but is not making any plans for public transportation. So shadows is one thing, and I'm a tree hugger, so I'm very, very concerned about shadows. But every high-rise development that comes brings another 200 or 300 cars to a very small contained area. We're having parking issues, we're having public service issues, we're having traffic issues. And so I don't believe the city should on one hand be approving an ordinance to rapidly increase density without any strategy to alleviate private car ownership.
So I think we got you in contact with Transportation and Mobility on their plans for, you guys are working with them at all? Yeah. Okay, so I just want to make sure that was followed up because I remember you coming to DRC.
Hi, I have a comment. I'm Christine Jones from Lauderdale Manor, Vice President. My concern is that you're talking 500 feet or 500 up in residential community as well, because people are buying up property throughout the entire city. And if this ordinance passed, then that would give that person the right to build that high up, whether it's 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, because that ordinance would be in effect. So me personally, and from Lauderdale Manor, I'm going to tell you no straight off the bat. We don't want that in our community, period. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Hello, Heather Kniff from Croissant Park. My question is, how many 500 feet tall buildings are there in Broward County, and where are they?
So that's a great question. If you want a visual, those tall buildings are in downtown or probably the Hard Rock. I believe they're at 499 or 500 because that's the tallest building in the city and downtown is with a Hyatt-centric building that goes to 498. That's the tallest building right now. If you want a visual of what a 500-foot building would look like.
Go ahead. All right, right here.
Hello, Miranda Lopez. If we right now are having problems with the height of 300 feet adjacent to single-family neighborhood, how are we going to handle the neighborhood compatibility with 500 feet? Can you explain that? Adjacent or inside of a single-family home?
I didn't hear the last part of it.
It's on. Here, just hold it.
How are we going, if we are having problems with buildings 300 feet adjacent or inside single-family homes, how are we going to handle 500 feet high? Because I think that we are required to have neighborhood compatibility. How are you going to handle that problem?
So part of the application process for an applicant coming in, and this is not strictly just for the PDD process, we have neighborhood compatibility requirements. Anytime there's a non-residential adjacent to a residential neighborhood, where the applicant has to address a number of factors that deal with appearance, mass and scale, noise impacts and everything that they have on that community or that neighborhood. In the code, there is a step back requirement based on the building heights that are in the zoning district of the residential neighborhood, along with the zoning district where the non-residential is proposed. The applicant has to step the building back from the property line. So there's a setback and a step back, meaning a setback from the property line, the building has to be set back so far. And then when it goes up, it has to step back in. And that is part of the neighbor compatibility requirements. And it goes up to 40 feet. So that setback comes back from the property line. Then it goes up 40 feet, and then it has to step back at a higher level. And that distance is dependent on what the zoning district is next to it. It gets a little technical.
Bill Brown, President of the Central Beach Alliance. Jim, thank you for your presentation. They gave a presentation to the Central Beach Alliance on October the 29th. We had well over 150, 200 people in attendance that night. I can tell you, in his slide, we worked very hard, and we allowed one developer, one out of the two, to go up to 300 feet because it took months of negotiations and working with the developer, working with city staff and city planners. For the beach, their locations at 300 feet fit, but not 500. And at that meeting, we took a vote. There was 208 votes against, 3 in support. So I'm here to announce tonight the Central Beach Alliance is here to support other neighborhoods that are opposed to that, and we will vote against it, and we will carry the message to City Council if this comes up for a vote. Thank you.
Jim. Hi, Jim. I'm Ann Hilmer from Idlewild. Idlewild has taken a vote, and we're opposed, first of all, to the 500-foot request that Tavistock is doing at Pier 66 and opposed to this change. And I have a question for you. Can you tell me how many 2-acre parcels there are in the city of Fort Lauderdale that could potentially request this PDD standing?
I don't have that information on hand. We'd have to go through GIS, our geographic mapping services, and pull that data. We can get the data together, but I don't have an answer right now.
Hi, Jim. I wanted to thank you guys for presenting this. It was very nice. I'm from Nurmi Isle, Tricia Halliday. We took a vote. The board. Okay. The board of directors, we are unanimously opposed to this. Fortunately, we didn't get a general meeting in. We have one this coming next week, and we will get the responses for you if you need that. But it's a hard no for the Nurmi Isles, the 3 isles.
Hi, I'm Betty Shelley from Imperial Pond. Jim already came to us, and then I took it out to a good portion of the people that live in Imperial Pond, and everybody is against it. I used to get the people pay attention to what we were talking about. I used a particular street that would be if they took there are some apartments there. If they took those down and put it there, one of these buildings, what it would do to Imperial Point. Pinecrest is right down the street, and Coleridge Isles. So you tried to get that because people don't pay attention to some of these things. But thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Jim, are you under the understanding that urbanization is imminent?
I mean, the population continues to grow. We are a desirable area to live. The state does not have a state income tax. With the pandemic, we have seen a surge in people moving here from up north and even California. We receive Colliers International, which does marketing analysis for the different market sectors from residential to office and just industrial. They give us a quarterly report and presentation, and we look at what the information they're telling us is that Fort Lauderdale is still in demand. People are still moving here. Businesses are still coming here. It's desired, so it's going to continue to grow. How we grow is what the comprehensive plan and what we do as a profession as planners to make sure it grows properly and that there's services provided for and concurrency and stuff like that.
Got it. And I don't expect you to have an answer to this next question by any means, but what would the plan be if We do not increase height. Urbanization is exponentially growing. Where do the rest of the buildings go? And what does that mean?
So the downtown, I'll use downtown as an example. The downtown master plan was adopted by the commission in 2003, 4, somewhere around the time. We've made changes in 2007, and pretty recently in 2020, we adopted codification of the code, of the master plan. The downtown is not built out. There are vacant properties. The implementation of that master plan is not fully done. There's still growth that can be accommodated in downtown that we are not seeing yet and not coming in yet. So there is potential to have the growth and the density and the population in concentrated areas where it's appropriate. And that's the vision for the downtown master plan and what the city commission adopted way back in 2003.
And 2 more quick things. Thank you. What, if any, are the benefits of raising this zoning requirement?
So I would not say any benefit to it because I don't know what the analysis goes in behind this.
Okay.
It's just a number that we've been asked to look at from 300 to 500 from a planning profession to look at those number changes. You would have to do an analysis to justify or get you there. We were not directed to do that.
I think my last question is for the gentleman at the Beach Alliance. I'm curious, as of when the building was finished, gentlemen at the Beach Alliance, how much have your property values increased since the 300 foot?
I'm sorry, he just walked out, but not because you asked that question. He just happened to just leave, so.
Good question.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna just take a couple more and then we're gonna stop. Okay.
Hi, I'm Joanne Robinson, the president of Harbor Inlet Association. Probably a dubious distinction this evening. And I just want to go on record publicly with the very resounding no from our neighboring neighborhoods, and some of the condominiums who attended Jim will attest to, quite raucous meeting. And thank you very much for that, Jim. We've also taken a neighborhood vote. 100% of the people said no, and the board has voted unanimously against this. We've sent all of this into the city. I'm sure your email inboxes are totally clogged up. But we are going to be the first neighborhood affected if this does go through. We're a low-rise neighborhood near the beach, and we do not want 500-foot towers near it.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a couple more questions, but I do want to say before you go, you're next.
Thank you for your help that night, by the way, too.
So I'm hearing a lot of neighborhoods are, we voted no. Make sure you've written a letter and it's been sent to the mayor and every commissioner. Make sure. You didn't stand here and tell us, it's like going on next door and say you don't like anything. It doesn't do any good. You really got to write a letter as to how your neighborhood feels. The mayor and the 4 district commissioners. And Jim and Ella too. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, one more question, which is 2 acres is roughly 87,120 square foot. The average lot size here in the city of Fort Lauderdale is approximately 8,300 square feet. So what we're seeing all around the city is we're seeing private equity firms from New York, California, buying large plots of land, house after house after house, and turning them into Airbnb. In certain places like Lauderdale Isles, you can actually look at 6 houses all connected that are Airbnbs. What is to prevent all of those people that are buying up all of these homes, displacing first-time home buyers, increasing rents all across the city, from Airbnb today and just waiting for this to pass, and then starting to apply to join all those lots together to put a 500-foot tall tower in Lauderdale Isles and everywhere else?
So the density limitation of 50 units per acre is the maximum that's established in the PDD. But the language for density reads, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but this is what it says. It's the density is limited by the underlying land use or not to exceed 50 units per acre. In a residential neighborhood like that, say if it's RS8 zoning, your land use is limited to 8 units per acre. So you can never get over probably a couple stories because that density cap is going to apply to that residential property, or if they combine residential properties together, they won't have enough density to build up to 500 feet. The PDD says specifically the underlying land use for density, if it's a residential zone and residential land use, which I think that's a scenario you gave me, they're going to be limited to that density. They cannot go to 50 units per acre.
Okay. Okay, Abby, and then we're going to start, we're going to just do a couple, like maybe 3 more questions, and we're going to calm down because we have other things to do. But go ahead, Abby. Sorry.
Thank you, Jim, for your your presentation tonight. My question is, how did this even get this far? How is it that a developer can just come into the city, look at our existing ordinances, and just, randomly make an audacious request to change our ordinance from 3 to 500 feet? I mean, do they have to have an application process, or do they have to, shouldn't that be vetted on a staff level in some ways before? I mean, the amount of staff hours that has been spent on this is enormous. We have a lot of issues in the city, and I wouldn't think, the amount of hours that you've had to spend going around to the neighborhoods and making presentations is warranted. I mean, it doesn't fit with our comprehensive plan. It doesn't fit with our future zoning maps or anything. How did it even get to this point?
So yeah, it's cutting into my wine times, that's for sure, when I do my presentations. The commission asked staff to do this. It was the request of a property owner, and I think everyone in the room knows it's Pier 66. They have not submitted anything to the city as far as plans. So everything you all have seen in renderings and images of buildings is the exact same thing that staff has seen. We have not seen anything else. And our commission, our boss, basically told us to go do this.
Okay, I'm trying to think right now what I want. Okay, we're going to do two more. We're going to do you and you.
Hi, my name is Fred Nesbitt. I'm the president of the Galt Mile Community Association. We're kind of a unique neighborhood because we have 33 high-rise condos and co-ops in our neighborhood. We have no single-family homes. But at our advisory board meeting about a month ago, we voted unanimously opposed to this. We're very concerned that we're going to see an influx of developers coming in trying to buy up condo buildings. Our condos range in size from the smallest is 23 units, the largest is 400 units, and we can't imagine a 500-foot building being built on the Galt, what it would do to the infrastructure of the Galt, just in terms of traffic, congestion. I mean, and if you're ever on the Galt Ocean Drive in the morning, you'll know it's a nightmare to begin with. So we voted, we discussed, a long discussion, we voted unanimously to oppose it because we think it will have a negative impact on our neighborhood.
And he wrote really a very comprehensive letter. It was very nice. So, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I talking? I have never been to one of these meetings before. My name is Susan April, and I am technically in the Harbor Inlet community in the Oceanage, which are small buildings, 2 stories high. It's more than 2 acres, though. And I was trying to envision, having gone to the Tavistock presentation about a year ago, I think, how this 50 units per 2 acres works. I know they're supposed to be big units, but there's a tower and another one across the street. And so I really question, I think someone mentioned for the developer, well, people will probably they'll be big units, or they'll put them together. So I thought they're trying to tell us there really won't be that many people. But I got to say that the Pier 66 thing is what, as Nancy, I think, mentioned, is what got me interested, because that will change the character substantially and not improve the area. And, the Gulf Ocean Mile is a good example, but go to Sunny Isles Beach. There's just buildings. I don't know what their zoning is. It's in Dade County, but I just think that just because it's 50 units per 2 acres, it doesn't mean that they can't be awfully big units. I oppose it.
Okay, Chris, and then Ed.
Hey, Jim, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Chris Williams, Coral Ridge Association. We got this information back in June from Ella, so we already vetted it, went through it, shared it with other associations. A lot of us had discussed it, and it was pretty much the same thing we're talking about tonight. There's really, in our opinion, and we issued a non-support letter for that. So I just want to let you know that, yes, on record, Coral Ridge did send in the letter. I think you guys got it. And I know I'm a District 1 candidate for commissioner. There's some District 4 candidates for commissioner here. And I bet that if anybody was on that thing, they'd vote no. Thank you.
So if any of your communities have had to vote and you haven't gotten a letter to the city yet, please forward that to myself and Ella so we can get that documented.
Ed Repholz, Lauderdale Harbors. We've talked about this, and I know it will be unanimously against the 500 feet. Have you ever looked at something different? You know, we, next to off 17th Street, that's just more traffic, especially coming up now. I mean, a lot of traffic. Sometimes you're trying to get on the US 1, go south to the airport, you'll wait through 3 lights. And you talk about a long time, it is a long time, and they're going to be working on Mercedes Bridge coming up. So I feel strongly nothing more than what's presently built that high on the outer island. Maybe 500 feet to work somewhere else, but it just clogs up one of the busiest streets in Fort Lauderdale now. And then on top of that, we're going to have a hotel built, going to bring on all Pier 66 residents, and there's another unit that's scheduled on 17th Street too. So we have a lot of building, a lot of traffic problem, and for that reason, a lot of our people don't want it. Now we'll have a board meeting and discuss it and send you or send a letter to whoever we need to. All right?
Okay, we're getting one more, and then that's you. Oh.
Jim, thanks a lot. Ella, thank you for coming tonight and giving that presentation. And the young gentleman that mentioned the growth in the community, I think you have a very valid point. I think that the idea of building or adopting this would be best suited for the RAC, the downtown area. As you mentioned, as I think a lot of us know, there's a lot of vacant property still downtown that could be buildable, which will take quite some time. We don't know what the effects of our hurricane that hit the West Coast is going to have on migration to Fort Lauderdale. But I want to ask you a question because I saw a graph that you had sent to one of my colleagues, and it indicated that the maximum height, if this was adopted, could go to, I believe, 675 feet based on the 125% increase over what was in the code. So this would be the new code, and it could go to 125% of the 500, which takes you to a much taller structure.
So the way the code is written now, today, it is 125% of the existing zoning building height, not to exceed 300 feet. What the commission asked us to do was to engage to see if that 300 feet should change to 500 feet, not to touch the 125%. That 125% is written in there today in the code, and it deals with the existing zoning districts. So if it's a B1, for instance, a commercial district, the maximum building height in a B1, so this is like most of our major corridors are B1 zoning districts, the maximum height is 150 feet. So what's saying there, if someone came in and got one of those properties to do a PDD, their maximum height could be 125% of the 150 feet. Say this gets adopted, it's not applicable to the 500. It's only to the existing zoning building height, the way it's written.
I understand, but why would that figure be in that chart? That's the essence.
That was
of the
just an
question.
analysis because is basically you're talking about the table that staff put together to show what these heights would be was based on existing heights in certain zoning districts or certain parts of the city. Probably that was referencing downtown. The RAC CC Central is 500 feet. You do 125% of that, you could probably go to 625 or whatever it is. Yeah, that's probably what you saw those numbers in there.
So if this goes before the new commission, because I think that it eventually will, I think it'll get delayed, what would be the opportunity to add an option or maybe to say in the change that 500 feet would be restricted to the RAC as opposed to anywhere else in the city? Because when you bring it citywide, you really open up a lot of floodgates.
The RAC already permits that height. Actually, the height limitation in the core of downtown is limited to the FAA. So if the FAA gives approval to a property owner in the core downtown to go to 700 feet, we follow that regulation because that's what is in our code for downtown. The rest of the city is not that way. Like I said, the major corridors in our city are usually B1 zoning districts, which have a maximum height of 150 feet. So that's, and then residential depends on where it is in the city. But yeah.
Okay, I think that we've, gotten into your cocktail time good and deep right now,
Right.
so.
I'm gonna go home and
Thank
my
you,
glass
both
of
of you.
wine.
Thank you, Ella and Jim. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So, I think everybody has a lot of knowledge about this. Am I correct? And a lot of neighborhoods have, civic associations have written letters. I just don't want you to, I can't, no matter what the council decides, your individual civic association, it makes a difference. That's why, we can speak with one voice for everybody, but it makes a difference if every civic association voices their opinion on this, every single one. And this is a big thing. It's an idea. It's an idea right now. So if you don't like it, this is a good time to let people know that. All right. So that concludes the part of our meeting tonight with our guest speakers. So I'm going to go through some council business real quick before, if you could just bear with me for a second. I want to talk about a couple things that won't take long. Right now, I think the last time we had a meeting like this, we had Louis Castillo here, and he passed away right after the 4th of July. It's very sad we haven't had really another meeting. We've had the 2 candidate forums, and we are going to have a memorial for him at the holiday party we plan having in December. But we have 2 vice president positions open. I've just kind of left it like we can handle it. We've seen me and Jim have been managing it. But if somebody's interested in doing either one of these positions, I'm just going to briefly, without looking at the definitions, because the definitions and the bylaws are pretty explanatory, but the first vice president really takes somebody that has some technical skills as far as computer skills. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, but it does help to be technically, have some technical oomph under you. You need to be able to use the internet and make forms and et cetera, et cetera. The second vice president, what we used to do all the time, if anybody was here before, we used to have food before these meetings. We haven't done that since the pandemic, and I don't see that happening so much in the future. I could be corrected on that, but I look at that person as sort of like the event person, or the person that plans things that what the council's going to do. So those 2 positions are open. If somebody's interested right now, get a hold of me and let me know. Otherwise, it'll be an elected, we have an election this coming, will be effective, I think it's this March. So they'll be open for that. The other thing is, how many of you went to the candidate forums? Did you guys like it? Those are pretty good, weren't they? They were good, yeah. That's, took a lot out of a lot of us, but I was really pleased with the way those ended up. I didn't realize we were going to do 2 the last time we had a meeting, but yeah, those were pretty good. And then I do want to just say we are going to have a holiday party. It will be in December. It will be here at City Hall. We get kind of, we're going back and forth as to how we're going to do it, but stay tuned. In November, we'll have a sheet going around. We want people to bring food like they used to in the olden days, pre-pandemic days. And Marilyn promised to be here and make, Marilyn's not here. What? No. Uh-oh. She promised to make her whatever punch it is that she makes. Everybody seems to really like. So that is it. One thing we forgot about the minutes for June. That was so long ago. I forgot to publish the minutes. So you guys think there's no minutes to approve right now. So we're not going to do that. They're on the website. Okay. I didn't look at the website to see if they were there. So I really want to approve them. I haven't read them myself. They're there. Okay. Next meeting we'll do 2 months worth of minutes. Then I would like to do quickly the treasurer's report. And Melinda's right there.
Thanks for that, Mary. So quick treasurer's report. As of today, October 11, in our Truist account, which is our main checking account, we've got $9,192. In the council PayPal account, we're at $1,197. And so we've got a total funds of $10,390. This does reflect pretty much all of the expenses that we paid out for the 2 very successful forums that we had, and it was well worth the money. So those checks have cleared, With regards to membership, we have, since I last spoke to you, back in July, had 2 additional members. We've had the Associations of Birch Park Beach HOA and Breakwater Homes Association both join, so that's great. And I will take any comments or questions on the treasurer's report.
All right, thank you, Melinda. No questions. All right. I don't really have a report myself. Is there any new or old business anybody wants to bring up? Good.
Jim Labrie, Twin City Heights, Vice President. I don't know, it was like 6 or 8 months ago, I joined the audit committee, but I never heard of anything happening with that, or nobody reached out to me, and
You mean they dissed you? They didn't invite you to the audit committee meeting? Oh, got your blessings. I'm sorry. They did do an audit report. They have to do it. When is it you have to do it by? When did you do the audit report? In the springtime? Yeah, in the spring.
Yeah, I was, we definitely went through the audit. I guess it was Jim Concannon and Marilyn Mamano. They followed the regular process and gave a report out back in the spring. So, yeah, I'm not sure what happened there.
I apologize. We'll blame it on Marilyn since she's not here. Okay. Yes, sir.
Lynn Morgan? Yeah, I'd like to introduce, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce, my name is Michael Albert. I'm the representative of District 2 of the council. Lynn Morgan is here. She's the president of South Middle River, and she's doing a phenomenal job. Some of you know about it, maybe some of you don't know about it. It's regarding feeding the homeless. And right here, they make 25 lunches, and we feed the homeless at the homeless court right here every Wednesday. So Lynn Morgan, please take over from here. Here.
Tomorrow morning, in these seats where you're all seated, are going to be people that don't have a home, don't have a bed.
Put the mic to your face, please. They can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. These people don't have a refrigerator with food, but they come here every Wednesday morning because the city provides great opportunities for these people. The shower bus is out front. There's usually a couple of barbers that will trim their beard or cut their hair. And when all of that is done, they come inside these doors and they grab a lunch, a free lunch, and they have a seat right here. The perimeter of this room, where all these tables are filled with the resources that these people, no matter what their problem is, the city has provided about 18 resources to help these people, whether it's NA or alcohol or mental or medical. All of these services are provided for these people. It's a wonderful thing that they do here. It's called Community Court, and if you've never visited Community Court, you really should, because they do some amazing things. I was brought to Community Court through the Fort Lauderdale Police Department, the homeless outreach officers. This is what they refer to as the low-hanging fruit. The people that want to help are here. And once the people are inside this room, the people that are sitting around providing all of these resources and services for these people, they mingle. You living on the street? Do you want to get off the street? What do you need? What can I do for you? So there's great possibilities to help the homeless. What I discovered when I was here was that for 4 months, they had no free lunches. The previous source had stopped. So I asked, they said, we need 25 lunches every Wednesday. I thought, I can do that in my kitchen, no problem. Well, I want to thank the 8 civic associations in District 2 that have stepped up to the plate. And as it works out right now, we have 25 lunches that are being delivered every Wednesday morning from the various civic associations, and it accounts to once every other month, we ask you to deliver these sandwiches. Minimal investment, $75. Minimal time from shopping to prep to delivering, 3 hours. So what I would like to ask the Council of Civic Associations and all of you here is if you would step up to the plate and if you would volunteer to help us. Your contribution would be once every 2 months, once every 3 months. It's not that big of a deal, and I guarantee you're going to sleep better at night. It's a great opportunity that they offer the people who don't have homes to get any kind of service that they want. So my name is Lynn Morgan. My email address is lynnmorgan@live.com. And I would love to hear from you. I would love to if I can get 8 more people on board, we'd be cooking. We'd be doing great. So I'm here. I would love for some volunteers to step forward. And I thank you. And I'm not going away. If I don't get them this month, I'll be back next month. Thank you.
Wow, I had no idea that. I think I'm going to put Michael in charge of that. Yep. Everybody else heard me. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you come.
No, I said I'm going to put you in charge of that.
Oh, okay, no problem. Yeah.
Oh. I know. All right. Well, if there's no other business, and thank you for that, Lynn. I did not know. I mean, I knew about the community court, but I didn't know about the lunches.
Excuse me, Madam Chairperson.
Yes.
I just wanted to be on record that Rock Island.
I know. know now.
Okay. I just want to introduce myself. I am the Rock Island Homeowners Association president. I'm here in present. Okay, my other 2 is not here. So recognize me in the future, Madam Chair.
I will never forget you now. I was verbally told I made a mistake. Okay. All right. I think I see him. I'm coming. Ed got in my way.
This is something totally for the benefit of the neighborhood, nothing specific.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, guys, if any medical volunteers want to help out with Hurricane Ian relief, the Medical Reserve Corps is a lead organization for Red Cross. So go to Medical Reserve Corps. It's browardmrc.com. We're doing credentialing and organizing all medical volunteers who want to go out and help out at Hurricane Ian. Thank you very much.
All right. Good idea. I'm not. All right. Well, if there's nothing further, I think we can call it a night. And thank you all for coming. So I don't think I have to have a motion to adjourn, do I? Do I have to have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Madam. Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. And nobody's opposed. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Great comments. And I think we all learned a lot tonight. So thank you.